Pastor Howard Cameron with Trinity Church. Pastor, please come forward. Everyone, if you so choose, please stand with me and remain standing for the pledge to our nation's flag.
As we begin, I'd like to invite everyone to National Day of Prayer this Thursday at noon on the City Hall steps. The public is invited. We'll have the Ozan Color Guard with us, and we'll be praying for our nation. And I want to thank the City Council and Mayor Ames for supporting us for all these years. Can we pray? Heavenly Father, we come before you now, so grateful for a city of peace. Lord, it's never perfect, but it is peaceful. We don't endure the problems and the trials that other cities that we read about and watch on TV. And I thank you for this, Father God, and I believe with all my heart it has to do with the quality of people that we elect and that man our city government. I ask you as we begin this meeting, Father, to watch over us and keep us. I ask you to lead us and guide us according to your will and purpose and not just our own, for your will is always superior in every way to our own. I ask you, Father God, that you bless each one of these members and the mayor. I thank you, Father, for each one of them. And we come together and we're very grateful and thankful for all you've done for Beaumont, Texas. It's in the name of our Lord Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge to our nation's flag. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. May we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Ames.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem FELDSCHAU.
Present.
Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Councilmember GETZ.
Present.
Councilmember PATE. Councilmember Samuel. And Councilmember Mouton.
Present.
Thank you.
We don't have any proclamations or presentations today, so I will move right into public comment. Now would be the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. If you would like to make public comment today on scheduled agenda items 1, 2, or the consent agenda, the time to do so is now. If you haven't already done so and you would like to speak on one of these items, please fill out the green slip at the rear of the room and hand it to the city clerk at the front of the room. She will call out your name. We would appreciate if you'd keep your comments to 3 minutes. The green light will come on when you approach the podium and the red light will come on when your time is up. If you're here to speak on any other item, I will open up the microphone at the end of our general business for that purpose. Now it's for 1, 2, or the consent agenda, and council, and for the listening audience, we are going to flip 1 and 2 and make number 1, number 2, and number 2, number 1, because we do have someone from out of the city here for number 2 in case we have a lot of discussion on the sign ordinance.
I don't have any, Mayor.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak on 1, 2, or the consent agenda? Okay, there appears to be no one. Council, I'll close the floor. May I have a motion on the consent agenda, please?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor for approval. Is there any discussion, questions, comments? Councilmember Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Manager, on A, talking about the appraisal district and this company that we're hiring, I know most of the citizens here the last several days have been receiving their new appraisals in the mail. Is this the same company that's doing that?
Thank you.
I don't believe so. This is a company that's worked with the appraisal district for many, many years as it relates to industrial companies and their values.
We've had success with them in the past, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? There being none, all in favor of the motion for approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Item number, we'll start with 2 as 1, please.
Okay, Mayor and Council, item number 2 is to consider resolution authorizing a contract for property insurance coverage for various city-owned buildings and assets. Higginbotham of Port Arthur is the city's broker of record for securing the city's property insurance. The proposed annual premium is based on a total insured value of a little over $240 million. The cost of the policy for this year is $1,710,642.77. It's a $167 little over $167,000 increase from last year's premium. The increase in rate is attributed to a hardening commercial property market as well as losses incurred by the city over the past few years. The policy renewal would be in effect from May the 1st, 2021 through May the 1st, 2022. And Joe Bass, I believe, is here with Higginbotham. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, council. You have heard the reading of item number 2. Is there a motion, please?
Move to approve.
There's a motion. Is there a second? There is a second. You seconded, right,
Second.
Councilmember? Okay, is there any discussion, questions, comments? Okay, there being none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Next item, please.
Is an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending chapter 28. Bear with me, article 28.01, section 28.01.004, article 28.03, sections 28.03.018, 28.03.020, and 28.03.021, article 28.04, sections 28.04.003, 28.04.005, 28.04.006, and 28.04.008, and then parentheses 22 of the Code of Ordinances of Beaumont, Texas, to make changes relating to signage, providing for severability, providing for repeal, and providing for a penalty. At a joint public hearing held on April the 19th, the Planning Commission recommended 3-2 to deny the request for amendments to the zoning ordinance. The administration recommends approval, and Chris Boone will come forward and walk you through the changes, or maybe from his seat there.
Thank
Mayor
you.
and council, good evening. Many of you were at the April 7 Joint Planning Commission and City Council workshop where we discussed the proposed changes that we have before you today. And for those of y'all who were not there, I'll just go ahead and give a quick synopsis of why we're bringing these proposed changes to you. Back in 2016, there was a Supreme Court decision called Reed versus the town of Gilbert, Arizona. And the case in question involved a lawsuit by a local church in the town of Arizona. And this church in question did not have a location. They didn't have a sanctuary themselves. They would move their worship service to different schools, different locations in the community. So in order to advertise for that, they would put out temporary signs. Sometimes we're referred to as bandit signs, but we've seen them whether they're advertising a service or real estate or campaign signs. We see a lot of those. They're called temporary signs. So this church would put out those temporary signs. And the issue for the town of Gilbert is it ran afoul of their sign ordinance. And what their sign ordinance said, which is what a lot of sign ordinances in America say, is it outlines what signs are allowed, but then typically there's a section of the sign ordinance that exempts a lot of signs because a city does not really want to permit every for sale sign in a city, does not want to permit every campaign sign in a city. So there's usually, in most zoning ordinances, there is a section of the ordinance that exempts signs, and it goes through and it outlines those types of signs. And the way it is typically done is by identifying those signs by what's in the sign. So you'll see campaign signs are exempt, temporary events are exempt, et cetera, et cetera. So the town of Gilbert said, well, that's not legal. You need to remove the signs. So the Reeds appealed that case all the way to the Supreme Court and prevailed. And what the Supreme Court came back and said is the city does not really have an interest in regulating signs based on content. And so they said if you have to read a sign in order to enforce your ordinance, it's unconstitutional. because there's no legitimate police power, there's no legitimate reason for a city to do that. And I mentioned that this case was decided back in 2016, which is quite a long time ago, and you might ask, well, why is it taking so long? And the answer is because that decision put most cities in this country in a bit of a quandary, because most of their ordinances are written in this way, where you exempt signs based on what's on them, what their content is. So I've been to multiple sessions where consultants and city attorneys and planners tried to wrestle with how to solve this issue. I think our city attorney has as well. We've been to some together. And it's just it's a difficult position that resulted from that decision. We were also waiting on a case coming out of the city of Austin, where a billboard company had sued the city saying that they were violating the Reed decision. And I believe that the city did not prevail in that case, so they lost. So that takes us to our proposed ordinance today. And again, I've handed out a 2-page sheet which basically shows the types of temporary signs, what's in the current ordinance and what's in the proposed ordinance. And maybe before I go through those real quickly, let me just say that our ordinance, like many, is broken into 3 parts. The first part is kind of a prescriptive part. So if you're a new business coming into town and you say, I want to locate a restaurant in town, what kind of sign package can I have? Well, you can have a freestanding sign of such and such size or such and such height. You can have a wall sign of a certain size, a certain number. So that's one part of the ordinance that we have, and it works pretty well. Now, in what we've got proposed to you today, we don't really have too many changes in that section. There is some language throughout, you may notice, in those sections that refer to content. So, for example, in that section, there's a provision for electronic reader board. You may recall several years ago, we used to not allow those electronic reader boards like you see at pharmacies. But we did make the change to ordinance to allow that, but we referred to things like message copy, and we referred to content. And so you'll see throughout, we have gone back, and anytime there's any kind of reference to content, we have proposed to make those changes. So again, we're looking at what the court says we can do, which is we can control the location, the number, the size, the height, and the manner in which they're displayed, which is not the content. So you'll see throughout, we've made some minor changes to that. So that's the first part of the sign ordinance. And again, this is typical across the country. The second part of the sign ordinance is for billboards. And you'll see we've made some changes to the definition in that, because the way we typically define billboards is whether or not they're advertising for the business or the use on the property versus an outside use. So what you typically see on a billboard may not be related to what's on the property. We have copied the state definition. So the state changed their definition after Reed, and so we have gone back and copied it verbatim so that we can refer back to the state's definition in an attempt to continue to regulate billboards the same way we have for many, many years. So again, no proposed changes there. Now, the third part of the sign ordinance is kind of the gist of what we've been talking about, and that's the exempt section. And again, these are all the signs that are exempt from permitting just because there are so many. We understand they're necessary for life in the city, but we don't want to permit them, but we kind of have to define them so that we don't have to permit them. But again, because of Reed, we have to read it we have had to read it in order to enforce it. So what we've proposed is outlined, and again, these are for temporary signs. What we've proposed here is outlined in the sheet in front of you. And so in the first column, you'll see temporary sign type. For example, real estate, construction, flags, yard lettering, and campaign. And what I've got here is line per line is the number, the size, the height, and the duration. In other words, the time at which you can have a sign, again, without having to get a permit. So, for example, real estate, the current ordinance allows one per street, a maximum of 8 square feet in height. There is no height defined, but again, you don't have to have a permit for a real estate temporary sign during sale or lease of the property. What we're proposing is no change to the number, no change to the size. We are putting a 6-foot high maximum on it. And then again, during the sale or lease of the property. And that's for residential only. If you go down to commercial, a little bit different. So under the current ordinance, you're only allowed one temporary commercial real estate sign. We're proposing an unlimited number for commercial properties. Again, right now it's limited to 8 square feet. We are proposing 50 square feet, again, in commercial. Height, there is no defined height, but we are proposing a 15 feet height. And then again, during a sale or lease of a property. Going down next to construction, again, currently you're limited to one construction temporary sign per street. We're proposing no limit. And again, a lot of these, if you were at the work session, this was essentially the consensus that came out of, or what we took to be the consensus that came out of that work session from input from council and the planning commission. Construction size, we're proposing no limit, whereas before it was 40 square feet. We're proposing no limit in height, and again, during construction. And the reason why we're proposing no limit is actually to be more permissive, is because we feel like during construction, if you see a construction site, there are signs all over the place, temporary signs. And so we feel like during a construction, there's really no need for us to be regulating that. The next section is flags. So we talked about flags. Currently, there's no definition or limit on flags. We have defined flags, but we are not proposing to limit them in residential or commercial. If you go to the second page, that first row is yard lettering. So we've talked about you've seen them around town. They're typically in the neighborhoods where you see a happy birthday or a congratulations or happy anniversary. These are relatively new, I think, phenomenon. Currently, they're not allowed by the current ordinance. So what we're saying is we do want to allow them. And you'll see the size is 60 feet, which sounds pretty big, but if you go and you look at them and measure them, they're actually pretty large. So the 60 feet would not be per letter, it's the whole sign. 5 feet in height, and then again, just limit it to 7 days. And that would be, the proposal is for that scheme to be for both residential and commercial. And then finally, last but not least, would be campaign or election signs. So in residential zones, the current ordinance says there's no limit. The current ordinance limits you in residential districts to 8 square feet in size, 6 feet in height, and the time duration is for 60 days maximum, must be removed 10 days after the election. And that's residential. We're proposing no limit to the number. We're proposing a maximum of 16 square feet, which is twice as big, 6 feet in height maximum. And then we're clarifying the definition a little bit, but essentially the same scheme would be 60 days max, must be removed 10 days after the election. And then the final category would be commercial campaign or election signs. Again, currently there's really no limit, but I put on here the timing is vague, because if you read in the ordinance currently, it could be interpreted a couple different ways. But typically the way we have been enforcing it is 60 days. And then finally, commercial proposed for election or campaign signs. Number would be no limit, maximum square feet of 40 feet, and 8 feet in height. That should be 8 feet in height, the second line. And then again, 60 days prior to the election and 10 days after. So again, most of the changes we've talked about have been in this category of exempt signs. So these are signs that the city does not permit for, just because there are so many. And we feel like it does, I think it goes a long way in preserving what the current scheme is in terms of limiting the number and size and location. But instead of us having to run afoul of by having to read the sign to enforce it, It's simply, you're allowed a certain number based on condition. And whether that's under construction, for sale, temporary, or again, during campaign season. But with that is what's proposed.
Thank you. Council, you've heard the reading of item number 2. Is there a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Okay, move to approve on staff recommendation, correct?
Well, no, ma'am.
Okay,
Just like to have a discussion on it first.
okay.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion.
So my question, couple questions that stand out. The yard lettering, is that something that's a current issue?
It's really not. I mean, we don't get complaints on it. It is a rather new phenomenon. But again, when we see the happy birthday and the congratulations, I don't think anybody is concerned about it. Our problem, again, from enforcement, is if it said something else, or if it wasn't, a nice happy birthday, congratulations message, but it was some other political message, or it could even be a business message. So somebody who lives in a single-family neighborhood, who owns a business across town, theoretically, if we just allowed it under Reed, they could advertise their business. So again, what we're proposing is to provide a scheme whereby you could have that, because currently it's not allowed.
Well, my concern is the 60 square feet. I mean, I can think of several different scenarios where you're going to exceed that. And I know the intent is not to punish somebody that's putting happy birthday to their kids on the yard,
Mhm.
but based off of this, it's not going to be legal.
Well, we feel like the 60 feet should be sufficient to encompass one of those signs.
And one of these letters are what, 2 by 2?
I would say they're approximately 2 feet high, and then we measured out 30 feet because as you've seen, they're pretty long. So 2 by 30 is 60 square feet.
So that'd be 30 feet long, 2 feet high.
Right. So like 30 feet of letters, 2 feet high would be 60 square feet.
Any other
Well, yeah, I still have a problem with that. My next question, back down to the campaign stuff. I guess my question on that is, do we have the authority to enforce that constitutionally?
Well, our purpose here is to regulate signs without having to read them. And while we talk about political signs, in order to enforce it, we can't read it to make sure or to determine whether it is or is not a political sign. So constitutionally, if we don't have to read it to determine what it is, it's enforceable.
I'm good for now. thank
Okay.
you.
Councilmember Guess?
So I understand the quandary that Reed versus City of Gilbert has put municipalities in throughout the country. My problem relates primarily to the section dealing with campaign signs. And the reason that I have a concern about it is because of Texas Election Code section 259.003. Now, I understand that there could be an argument made that Texas Election Code section 259.003 is itself unconstitutional under Reed versus City of Gilbert. That argument could be made, but this is still the law in the state of Texas. And we all took an oath to uphold the laws of the state of Texas. And this is the law. And so what I need to do, and I want to pass this out to all the council so that everybody can have a copy. And what this provision of the election code says, that a municipal charter provision or ordinance that regulates signs may not, for a sign that contains primarily a political message and that is located on private real property with the consent of the property owner. Prohibit the sign from being placed. Okay, what that's saying is that a city cannot enact an ordinance that prohibits a political sign from being placed. And doesn't talk about in terms of time either, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or a whole year. You can't prohibit a political sign from being placed. And it begs the question, obviously, as well, under Reed versus City of Gilbert, you're going to have to look at that sign to make a determination of whether or not it's a political sign. I get it. So this law, this statute, might have problems in and of itself. I get that. But it is the law as it currently exists. The legislature's in session right now. I don't know if they're going to address it or not. I don't know if the Attorney General's going to address it or not. But I do know this. This makes it real easy for me. I don't have a problem with most of these proposed sign ordinance changes, but when it comes to campaign signs, because of this, I can't support that section.
If I might, Mayor, address that issue.
Certainly.
Councilman, the logic that you're using, recognizing that the election code is presumptively invalid, as the courts have said, it stands at the same, on the same footing as the city's ordinance. The city's ordinance is presumptively invalid until the council changes it. That does not make the state law any better than what city's council's ordinance is. And the city's ordinance stands as the law until and unless the council changes it. So, and I don't think I'd be the first to say that the legislature has done some irresponsible things, but for them not to take a look at it as the council is taking a look at it, I think would be irresponsible on their part.
So let me ask the question then. We've got two presumptively, as it stands right now with the city, invalid, presumptively unconstitutional ordinances and statutes. To me, I know it's not exactly like with the Federal Supremacy Clause, but when you have a state law that is up here and you have a local ordinance and there's a conflict, and I understand we're a home rule city and we can pretty much do whatever we want to do in terms of making ordinances as long as they don't conflict with state law. Isn't this a conflict in state law? If we were to enact the ordinance that's being proposed before us?
The ordinance that's being proposed,
The section on campaign signs is what I'm referring to.
well, I know what you're talking about. What we're proposing is that you don't have to read the sign. The state law says political signs on its face, so it's invalid. Now, it would be irresponsible for us as a city to try to enforce a sign that we know to be presumptively invalid, and that's why we're here trying to change it. I understand and I get where you want to go with the political signs, but what we're trying to do is fix the City of Beaumont's ordinance.
Well, for the past 5 years, since the Reed versus City of Gilbert case came out, we've been handling this by simply not enforcing it because we don't want to do something that causes us a problem and invites us to the courthouse. And my suggestion would be that until the legislature fixes this or we have further clarification, when it comes to campaign signs on private property, and I'm not talking about city parks or polling places, and that's a whole nother thing, and I would absolutely support some sort of a restriction on the number of signs in parks and polling locations. That's a different subject. But right now, on private property, because of the state that the Texas Election Code, Section 259.003 is, I can't support it.
So, can I ask him a question? So what part of it, Councilmember Getz? There's no limit on the number. The size is larger.
well, there's a time element
So you
to
mean
it.
the 60 days max is what you're referring to?
There is a time element that, as the Texas Election Code reads, you can have a sign, a political sign on private property 365 days a year if you choose. And also, what did we decide to do with regard to other temporary signs that are not campaign signs, but are signs that are, Westbrook Bruin cheerleader lives here, or, proud member of Beaumont United basketball team. Where are those addressed in here under these proposed changes?
So you could do that under the yard lettering. We've got it labeled as happy birthday, but you could do that under.
So you're saying that we would only have, during a football season, and you want to recognize a football player as living at this house only for 7 days?
As proposed, yes.
Okay, so I've got a problem with that too, because a lot of parents have a great deal of pride in their children's accomplishments, and you see these signs all over the place in yards. And, I've never had a problem with that. And, look, I have the belief that when you are a private property owner, you should be able to do a lot of things on your property that, as long as it doesn't cause problems with your neighbors, and a sign on your property, if it's not obscene or objectionable in some way, and that again is another discussion.
You can't read it.
It can't be
You can't
obscene.
read it.
I get it. That there are a lot of problems, and you start going down rabbit holes. But I'm going to continue my focus right here on political signs, but I'm going to throw out there also the possibility of concern about these celebratory signs for students that have accomplished something that parents want to acknowledge and do a shout out for the kids for their accomplishments.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah, just 1 second, please. Councilmember Pate was next.
I just wanted to ask Councilman Getz, did he have something that he would change on this as to amend it? Because first off, I don't know of anybody, if somebody says yay Westbrook or yay Beaumont United, my kid goes there, or she's a member of the drill team, or I don't know anybody that's ever called Tina, correct me if I'm wrong, and said, they've had this sign up here for 3 months. Nobody complains because they get it. So my question is, do you have an adjustment to this that might be agreeable to everybody on council, or any reason just be opposed to it? Do you have a solution to it? And then maybe we'd move on and not spend the night here.
Well, of course, one solution to that particular issue would be, to not have a limit on the number of days that it could be out there. So that is something we could talk about, but it still doesn't solve the problem I have with political signs conflicting with the state law.
Because the thing that you talked about, I think, would fall under yard lettering, which is different
Yeah.
section. Okay, Councilmember FELDSCHAU.
Chris, I think it's obvious that you would probably agree that these amendments are not perfect,
Yes, sir.
but you also would agree that they're better than what we have right now.
Yes, sir.
So this is a step forward, moving into what we would consider something that's more perfect.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Councilman Getz, would you support this section if the limit on days was taken out completely?
Yes.
About campaign signs.
Yes.
On the campaign side.
Yes.
And probably on the yard lettering.
Yeah. Because nobody's
Mayor.
going to say happy birthday for a year.
Well,
But that could be the Westbrook or one of those. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
but happy birthday signs are,
They're not going to pay for them for that long.
when you
They're
rent them
expensive.
right, it's 24 hours.
Yeah.
And I promise you, they take it up within 24 hours.
Or you
So-
pay for an extra.
Or
day.
you pay for an extra day. Absolutely.
But that's kind of different than a
Westbrook Bruin.
yeah, like a child that goes, or young person that goes to school and went in their
Or
teen.
my child is a super reader.
Yeah, or something like that.
Totally different.
Yeah.
So, your suggestion, Randy, was take out the limits on both of them?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, is there any other discussion?
I'm sorry, I want a clarification.
Okay.
Take out the limits on what?
On the yard lettering and on the campaign signs, that you can have them for more than 60 days or more than 7 days.
So you're indicating that the Westbrook or the BU sign is yard lettering?
Well, that's where Chris said it would probably fall. I don't know where else it might fall, if there's another place. We could do a separate classification, but the yard lettering, like you said, I mean, they're gonna pick them up.
Mayor, if I may?
Yeah.
Okay, so since we're not going to necessarily be calling them in this amended ordinance campaign signs, what exactly are we calling them?
So the proposed ordinance is, let's see. And again, this is in the exemption, doesn't require a permit section. So the subcategory is election season supplementary signs. So again, we're not explaining the sign, although we kind of are, but we're not. We're just saying that
Because we
during,
can't read it.
right, during the election season, you're allowed these additional signs based on your location.
So if we took out the term election season and just referred to all of it as supplementary signs, whether it be BISD, excellent reader lives here, or if it's a cheerleader or a football player or a baseball player, they're all supplementary signs. It's already proposed that we have no limit on the number, and I don't think we should have any time period either. And I would be willing to go along with that if we, and look, most people are not going to clutter their yard with 100 different signs, but there are some that might. And if they want to try to mow around 100 signs in the yard, hey, God love them. But most people don't want to do that, and they understand aesthetics. Most people. But if it's private property, again, I'm a big believer in private property rights. And, unlike making noise at your house at 2 o'clock in the morning, where it can really bother your neighbor, or unlike emitting noxious odors from your home that could really bother a neighbor, a sign in the yard, it's not like that. And so if you're a private property owner and you want to put up a sign, and you want to put up 100 of them, I think that's your right. I wouldn't do it, but I think that's your right.
Okay.
How can we change? How can we
Well,
adjust
the motion will have to be amended, but I just want to make sure there's no more comments before we move to that.
Yeah.
Is there any more comments,
I have
questions?
one more question, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead,
Has
please.
anybody talked to the commercial realtors on this 50 square feet on the real estate stuff?
I think that's about what they use, is what we talked about at the work session.
Right, so under the current ordinance, and for the past couple decades, they've been restricted to 8 square feet. And so we're proposing that they be allowed in commercial 50 square feet. And again, this is based on what we're seeing out in the field. That's where we got the estimate. And then again, a 15-foot high max.
Okay.
So.
Well, Mayor, I would like to propose an amendment then that would delete the term of campaign season from being supplementary signs and just refer to them all as supplementary signs. And along with that amendment, I would like to strike the time period that is currently attached to this proposed ordinance.
So basically pushing together the, I'm going to change pages, sorry.
That would change.
Making one section for yard lettering and campaign, just like signs in their residential, right, is what you're talking about, correct?
Not
But the
really,
sizing is
because yard lettering is, as we're talking about it, and as I think we're understanding it in the discussion, a long series of individual letters that spells out a message like happy birthday or happy anniversary. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about yard lettering. But all these other plethora of signs, which can be anything from a campaign sign to an athletic
Okay.
sign, or abortion is a sin sign, or any of that. That all that kind of stuff is a supplementary sign in my view under this ordinance.
So you're saying leave the residential alone like this here?
No.
Yeah. No.
Well, because the sizing is different than the,
Oh, the yard letter. Yes.
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 Except for the length, is what your amendment is. On yard lettering, your amendment is to allow more than 7 days, but to leave it alone on yard lettering. And on campaign, we could change it to supplemental, and instead of just campaign, it could be whatever. And the size and everything is
Just
okay,
the-
but the timeline,
Well,
correct?
well, you have different proposed square footages on yard lettering as you do
Yeah,
on supplementary.
I'm
signs.
saying that they still would be separate, but you could call it supplemental rather than campaign. It
Yes.
could be those other types of
Yes.
signs.
Yes.
And it would be your amendment is to strike the 60 days on that one and on the yard lettering, but leave everything else the same.
Well,
as
it's
that.
not 60 days on yard lettering, it's 7 consecutive
Yeah.
days.
Yeah,
she's
right,
saying
but
7 to
take
60.
that off completely.
Uh,
Is that what I'm just trying to see
No,
what your
I
amendment is.
mean, it's like Councilmember Mouton said, they're gonna come pick them up if they're a rental within 7
Yeah.
days. So, yeah, we could leave it or strike it up. I mean, yeah, okay.
So you're saying to leave the yard lettering alone then?
The yard lettering, yeah, I didn't have any problem with
Okay,
that.
all right. I'm just trying to clarify your
No,
amendment.
no, I understand. I did not have a problem with the yard
So,
lettering.
yard lettering stays in your amendment.
Yes.
Campaign signs stay with the exception of the timeline.
And with the exception of it being called,
We could call it
so
supplemental
just
or,
changing this category.
right, I think, Chris, you said it's currently titled election season.
Correct. Subsection 7 is election season supplementary signs. So if you struck election season, it would just be supplementary signs.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
and it would be the
what I-
same? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's my
That's
amendment.
your amendment.
That's
So
my
is there a
proposed.
proposed amendment, so is to the original motion, and
I'll
it is an
second it.
amendment. This time, it is an amendment. So you're seconding,
His amendment.
all right?
Mayor, I'd like to hear the amendment as proposed.
Okay. From me? Or
No.
her?
From whomever.
Go ahead, please. Say what your, restate your amendment, please.
Sure. I propose to amend this proposed ordinance so that we strike under the section that is dealing with campaign season supplementary signs, the word campaign season, the two words campaign season, and also to strike the number of days in which these supplementary signs can be allowed to be present on residential property.
And the motion is to approve as presented by staff.
Well, he
With
said he
that-
wanted to talk about it first.
Oh.
When Councilmember Neal made the motion, and I asked him if it was as proposed, he said he wanted to talk about it first. So there's an amendment on the floor now, and there's a second.
Well, I'd like to know what was an original motion that was on the floor. I wasn't clear of that.
Okay, well, I did ask him if it was, he's talking right now, but
I'm just-
Councilmember Neal, so when you made your original motion, I asked you if it were as read, and you said, but you have some things you want to talk about. So that's
I'll pull
what,
my motion and let
You're-
Councilman Getz make a new one.
okay, thank you very much.
Okay?
Okay, so we have yours.
Yes.
Okay, and we have a second.
Yes.
So, are you clear now? Are we good?
No, I don't know what the motion is.
Okay, you're talking about the amended motion?
I'm asking for what is the proposed motion?
Okay, say it again, please.
Okay. I propose that we pass the motion as proposed with the exception
Okay.
that we change the terminology for election season supplementary signage by striking the words election season, and also by striking the number of days that a sign can be out on private property. That's both residential and commercial, because they're both private property, striking the number of days that those supplementary signs can be present.
Okay, so now residential and commercial on the number of days, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Second.
okay. All right, if there's no more discussion, all in favor of the motion, the amended motion, well, yours was pulled, the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. I personally don't have a problem with the timeline, but I'm fine with it if that's what the desire of the council is. I would like to ask a question, though, now that we're through this, and it's just kind of something that's come up that I've had people ask. So if there are regulations in a neighborhood, this might be a legal question. If there are regulations in a neighborhood that are different, like they say you can only have that up for one day or whatever.
You talking about like homeowners association
Correct,
regulations? That'd be-
HOAs.
Yeah, that would be for them to enforce. We don't enforce
We,
those.
so
ordinance
they,
restrictions.
and I recognize, I just want to make that statement because that's come up from a lot of people before, that our city ordinance says something and the neighborhood says something else. But if they enforce it, though, they can, I guess, but they put themselves in the position that they might not be following state law
Correct.
Or federal.
or
Yeah.
federal law.
Mayor, if I may, just real quickly, we'll continue to monitor, and if we feel like there's an issue with what's proposed, we'll always bring it back. And then again, we'll also monitor the legislature, so if that,
Something changes there.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. I know this was difficult. It's kind of like putting a square peg in a round hole. Okay, thank you very much. All right, that does conclude, I believe, our general business items. So I will now open up the microphone for any citizen who wishes to speak. If you would like to make public comment today, and you haven't already done so, please fill out the green slip at the rear of the room and hand it to the city clerk at the front of the room. She will call out your name. We would appreciate if you'd keep your comments to 3 minutes. The green light will come on when you approach the podium, and the red light will come on when your time is up.
Troy Marsaw, 3455 Sarah Street, Beaumont, Texas.
Thank you very much. The reason I've come before you today is when I purchased the facility, the YMCA on Sarah Street, I purchased it for the purpose of the community having a place to go when they had no other place to go to, but also to turn it into a healthcare facility. I decided to have an event while we were working on the facility on Saturday, and I called one of the council members to ask if I needed to have any type of permit. And she called me back and said, no, I did not need any type of permit. So today I was met with pushback by planning, because planning is saying that I cannot hold a event without having a permit. And so I don't know what type of permit. They didn't give me the type of permit that's needed. But the other thing, what they did give me is amusement and recreation services, saying that if my establishment is primarily engaged in providing entertainment, I would have to have some type of special license. That's not what I do. And I can't understand why I can't have an event for the community as often as I want. I want that space for little children that want to play baseball, football. They should be able to do so without having me to have to come before you to beg for them to be able to do or have events at that facility. And so I want to get this straight today, if I can, possibly.
Okay?
You painted it, and you made some other improvements. It looks really good.
But thank you.
We drove out there the other day, but I would visit with Chris Boone and maybe the city attorney after the meeting, and hopefully they can help you.
Well, I did that earlier, and that's why I'm here this evening.
Oh, you've met with Mr. Boone?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
So I maybe he can explain to us all
Well-
how I fall under this, because I don't understand it.
Well, it's not a discussion item. It's not posted that way.
Okay.
But if you would like to stay after, we could do that.
Okay.
All right.
And could the city attorney stay after as well?
Yes, he will.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
And we
you.
do appreciate what you're doing in that community.
Thank you.
Terry Roy, 9150 Shepherd, Beaumont, Texas.
Good evening. How are you? Last week I came here, I filled out one of those green cards with my name, address, phone number, all of that. Now I'm represented by 5 people up here. The mayor, 2 at large, the councilman in Ward 2 who's asked me to leave, and Kyle, the city manager. And not one of y'all picked up the phone to call me. See, that's the reason why a lot of people are leaving Beaumont. Because I tried to make it a proactive situation, but by me being here, it's becoming a reactive situation. And that's why the city is faltering. Nobody wants to be proactive. I shouldn't have to come here twice to get green water out of my ditch in a pipe that belongs to the city. I shouldn't have to do that. Who does that in 2021? Now, I put my name and number on there again in hopes that maybe somebody will call me. Now, see, this weekend is Mother's Day weekend, and I like sitting outside. Now, how I'm going to sit outside next to a ditch that has green mold in it? Nobody wants to do that. I want to sit outside and enjoy my wife, my grandkids for Mother's Day. Now, for nobody to call me, and then you come to me, you ask for votes, I'm not going to vote for nobody that's not going to call me and say nothing. I don't want to do that. I don't think any of y'all would. We got to change the mindset of this city. If not, we're going to sink further and further. We're not going to rise. It's a reason why we dropped from 118,000 people to 115 for things like this, little things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roy.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Is there any other citizen who wishes to speak today? Okay, if there's no one, I'll close the floor, and I'll start with you, Councilmember Neal.
No comment, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Getz.
To the citizens that came out and voted, thank you. To the citizens that did not come out and vote, I hope you vote in the runoff. You do not have to have voted in the general to be able to vote in the runoff. I would like to take a moment to read an editorial that came out Sunday in the Beaumont Enterprise. Not everybody gets the Beaumont Enterprise anymore, and I don't always agree with the Beaumont Enterprise. But on this one, I do, and I want to take a second to read this. It's titled, New Council Should Review Transit System. Ideally, the new Beaumont City Council that was elected yesterday would have had more say in the changes to the city's bus system that occurred last week. And this is referencing the time where the majority of council voted to buy new buses. But many of those developments were long underway by the state and federal government, such as the coming delivery of 16 new buses that even City Manager Kyle Hayes says are too large for the city's needs. And since the state and federal government pay for half of the costs for the municipal transit systems, they often do what they want with little or no input from the affected city. Even with these bureaucratic burdens, the city's new mayor and council should do as much as they can to make the city's bus system as effective and economical as possible. The buses do meet an important need for some low-income residents, and helping them get to jobs or doctor's appointments should be a concern of every council member. On the other hand, driving around large buses that could be mostly empty doesn't make much sense economically or environmentally. There's got to be a better way to match the resources with the need here. For starters, a long-sought quest of Councilmember Mike Getz must be finally resolved, and it's basic. Just how many people ride the buses? Fares and counting were suspended when the pandemic began in early 2020, so there are no reliable numbers for the recent past. Mayoral candidate Roy West also talked a lot about the need for more metrics. hard data on what the city was doing or not doing on an issue so that the council and taxpayers could know if changes were needed. Fares will be charged again on June 1st, so the mystery over the number of passengers should end. Going forward, there must be no more evasiveness on these figures. The council should receive monthly or quarterly reports, as it should on many other city departments. GETZ has suggested that transit officials are reluctant to provide the ridership numbers because they are low, and there's only one way to prove or disprove his suspicion. City officials also need to lobby federal officials and Texas members of Congress to get some flexibility on the bus sizes. Currently, the feds want large buses because they are more likely to last the 10 years or 350,000 miles that are required. That's understandable to an extent, and it's nice to see the federal government requiring some standards like this. But some cities, such as Beaumont, probably don't need the larger buses. Smaller buses could be cheaper and more effective overall, even if their lifespan isn't as long. Finally, city councils in Beaumont and many other towns should prod the state and federal governments to support voluntary experiments with some form of ride sharing, such as Uber or Lyft. On paper, it makes a lot of sense to match up a rider and a ride more specifically, perhaps with vouchers from the city, for at least some residents. It could be much more efficient than a large bus running a fixed route with little ridership. The city's current model dates from the last century, when mass transit was more popular and ride-sharing did not exist. It worked fairly well for a long time, but we live in 2021, not 1921, and all city departments should reflect that reality. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Mayor.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
If things go as scheduled, next Tuesday, the new council will be seated. And with that said, today will be the last full council meeting that Councilwoman Mouton will be seated in Ward 4, and Councilman Pate will be seated at large. And so just wanted to say thank you for your many years of service to the city and those positions. And I enjoyed the last 2 years. And next Tuesday, the new council will be seated and we move forward. But just wanted to thank you for all that you've done, and I've enjoyed working with you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Pate.
Thank you, Mayor. Since this is our next to last meeting, I didn't want to take away from next week's meeting when we swear everybody in. I just want to take a little time to congratulate Taylor and Mike, Randy, AJ, AUDWIN for getting reelected, for the mayor getting elected wife of the year and get to spend time with Rodney, and congratulate Roy and Robin on being in a runoff. Also say that I appreciate Begita and LaShawn and the fine way that this campaign was conducted. One of the great things about our community, and y'all have heard me say it before, is the people. It's not the buildings, not the businesses. It's that the people are nice. And so I want to congratulate them, and I also see Stacy and Joe and Chris is coming on, and we got some really great people that are going to be representing the city. I'm not going to go anywhere. I kind of like it here. But I did want to take just a few moments to thank the mayor for the great job she's done. She's been here 27 years. And for somebody that spent 27 years with a close, warm, personal relationship with the United States Army, that's a long time, folks. You got to be dedicated. And the mayor, the longest serving mayor at 14 years, the third longest serving at-large council member. I'm the second at 14 years, and Andrew at 21. I didn't realize he'd been there that long, but gee whiz, what can you say? But the idea is that people that do this, you're not doing it for the $400 a month or the $600 that the mayor makes. You do it because you care about the city. And in Stacy and Joe's case, you care about the students, you care about the future of our community. We're fortunate to have in Beaumont some great people, people that you don't hear a lot about. We don't talk a lot about Bart and Chris. Kyle and Tyrone are up here all the time, but if you don't have people like Kyle, Tyrone, Chris, Bart, Molly, who we congratulated last week, Mike, I could go on and on about all the different. Chief Singletary, honest to goodness, is one of the greatest police chiefs in the country and does an exceptional job. And Earl White, what can you say, our fire chief? We have so many great people that make this city run, and our wonderful people upstairs, Angie and Charlene and Hallie, they make all of us look good. They really do. But you don't see them. Tina does a wonderful job. Todd does as well. You know, when $250 million is a lot of money where I come from. I mean, it's almost as big as the lottery tomorrow night. But these people are dedicated, but they're not usually the people you hear about. If there's some political issue, it's us talking about it. But when it's raining, when it's flooding, when there's an ice storm, these people like Tim Oknachek kicks it into high gear over to EOC to make sure the city functions. But you don't hear that all the time. And I just want to take a little time to thank everybody for making the 14 years I've had here an enjoyable one. Now, things have changed. When I first got elected, I had hair and it was black. I didn't have cancer. Then I didn't, and now I don't. So a lot of things can happen in 14 years. But I'm very proud. When you drive around Beaumont, you see a lot of things, and the mayor and I and AUDWIN are literally the only ones that have been here the whole 14 years that I've been here. When you drive around Beaumont, you can tell go find a picture of Beaumont 2007 and take a picture today. And there's a lot of things that are going to happen as we move forward. The city keeps moving forward. I've got a lot of confidence in our community. Obviously, I do. I have a restaurant, and I'm not going to promote it, even though this is my next to last meeting, but Mother's Day is coming up, so support your local restaurants, whichever one you have to choose. We got a lot of them. Trust me, I spend a whole lot more money in other restaurants than in mine. But we do have a lot of great things going on in Beaumont. As previously stated, there is a runoff. Roy and Robin are in a runoff. It counts for you to take time and vote and to understand where everybody stands on the issue. Because, you know, we complain about the turnout being low, but that's us. I mean, we can't turn around and blame it on somebody else for not turning out and voting. I know everybody up here voted. Pretty much everybody out there voted. But for those of you that are watching that didn't, it's a right, it's a responsibility, and it's a privilege, and everybody doesn't get that. I also want to say that for those of us that do this on occasion, you'll hear Mike talk about Allison and Randy talk about, and we all talk about our spouses, and Becky talks about Rodney, and rightfully so. It's a tough job to do without support. And if you don't have it, it's really difficult. And for those of us that have been fortunate enough to have partners that were always there, it really makes a difference. I know most of you know my significant other, the better 90%, Shireen, is here. She didn't know I was going to say that. But that's one of the things that keeps all of us going. I know when Kyle goes home, Ann goes, "You're doing a great job. I know it's tough, but you're doing a great job." And it makes a difference, because that's why you do it, because it can make a difference. And like I said, next week, we've got some new folks that I know are going to do a great job. And I'm going to be right there applauding them all. Like I said, I'm not moving away. I'm happy to pay the taxes. I wish they were a little lower, and I'll be coming down here if I think they get out of hand on that side and say, "Why don't y'all take a look at this and see what we can do?" But I want to thank all the citizens that for 7 straight elections gave me the privilege and the honor to do this. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. We appreciate it. Yes, Councilmember Samuel.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I say thank you to all of the citizens that got out to vote. I'm truly appreciative of those that voted with confidence to allow me to continue to serve. Having been here quite a while, probably longer than anyone here. But I'm humbled because I love Beaumont, and I want to see Beaumont become a better place to live, work, and raise our families. It's going to take all of us. I say to each one of you, to all of the voters, thank you for getting out. To the candidates, thank you for participating. That's truly the power of the people, to participate in the political process. It's not always easy. People see us, and many people think there's nothing to it, but it's a lot of work. But you get out what you put in. To those, to my opponent, I say congratulations. I wish him and all of those who were not quite as successful as they want to be today, continue to work, because your work is not in vain. Because each time we run for elections, it gives us new energy. It allows us to look at things a bit differently. I'm flesh, just like you. I don't always get it right, but I will continue to try to right the wrong decisions that I've made. For those citizens who did not vote for me, I thank them also. I ask that if there's anything that I've said or done that's offended someone or hurt someone or rubbed someone the wrong way, I apologize. It's not my intent. I'm trying to serve to the best of my ability. I'm trying to be the best that God allows me to be. But I need, and we need, all of you, because we can't do it alone. There's no way this council can do the best job for the entire city without your participation. I hear people talking about term limits. We all had a term limit. That was this past election. That's the power of the people, to make decisions as to who they feel are doing the job. If your candidate didn't get elected, maybe you didn't quite give enough work to get it done, but it's still a part of the process. For that, I say, again, I thank God for the opportunity to serve you, the citizens of Beaumont, particularly the citizens of Ward 3. I pray that we can look together to the future and strive to work together and make Beaumont the place we all want it to be. I look forward to working with the new elected officials. Bring your energy, bring your ideas, bring your thoughts. But most of all, just bring your heart to serve. That's what it's all about. So I say thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Mouton.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just want to say it has been a great 6 years serving and it's been a privilege to serve the citizens of Ward 4. I was elected in 2015. If you had told me I would be here for 2021, I would have told you no back then. But once you get into this work, I really fell in love with doing the work that I do, helping people. I've truly, truly enjoyed serving. I have friends that I have met all across the United States, bringing back ideals and different things that Beaumont has not ventured out to, but the ideals were still presented, and they're still there and can still move forward with them. I want to say to our mayor, it has been great working with you for the past 6 years. Congratulations to Taylor, Mike, Randy, AUDWIN, AJ, and Chris. It's going to be a great council. And Chris, I'm a phone call away, but you're in good hands because this is the best staff that I have ever worked with. I've built relationships, and as one of the council members said, some of the people that do some of the hardest work, you never see them. Angie and who else is back there? Hallie and Charlene. I mean, they will call you on a Saturday and tell you, don't forget, you have a proclamation to read. They'll call you on a Sunday, and this is on their off days. And you don't get dedicated staff like that all the time. So to our office admins, hats off to you. You're the greatest. I've enjoyed the 6 years of working with them. Also, Tina, Todd, Kyle, Tyrone, Chris, and Bart. I was looking at you, I almost couldn't say your name. This is the best team that, I'm telling you, I worked for AT&T for 32 years. And these past 6 years have truly, truly been great. And not to mention the directors, Sherry Ulmer that just retired, that stayed an extra year because of the pandemic and postponed her retirement. Benji, oh my God, out at the landfill, you'll have a storm and the city is torn up, and almost 7-8 days later, all of the trash is picked up. You can't ask for a team. You couldn't ask for a better team, but it's just so many people, streets and parks, and the mayor knows that when we go to conferences, people talk about our staff all the time because we have the greatest staff, truly, truly greatest staff. Danette and Water, just so many people. And if I did not call your name, charge it to my head, not my heart, because truly, we truly, truly have a great staff. Chief Singletary, Chief White. I really can just go on and on and on, but it has just been the best 6 years coming out of retirement after working 32 years. I've truly, truly enjoyed it. But I want to say also to this weekend, to Begita, to Roy, to you, WL, to WL, and also to LaShawn Proctor. We were out there beating the pavement for those 10 days, and it was not fun. All of this is peeling. It was work, but it was work that was well worth it. And to all of those who did not vote, you have to get out, exercise your right to vote. Sitting at home, complaining, and allowing only 10% of the citizens to dictate what is done in the city it's not a good reflection of the citizens making sure that the right people are elected to run your city. So I enjoyed the campaign trail with all of you. It was a great race, and I look forward to the runoff, which will be June 7th through June 15th, and the election day will be Juneteenth, June 19th. Please get out and exercise your right to vote. And again, thanks to all of you. I've enjoyed being on staff, and I look forward to working with the new council in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Pate, you had something else?
Yeah, I sure did. I forgot Jimmy Neal, our Parks and Rec guy that works so hard, and also A.J. Turner. I remember when A.J. ran last time, and he did such a great job. I said, just keep doing what you're doing. And now he gets to sit up here. So just keep doing what you're doing. I'm really proud to be a citizen of Beaumont, really proud to have been able to do this. And I look forward, like I said, I'm not retiring. Retire. Jeff Foxworthy says that's what you do when you have a flat. I don't know anybody named Pate that retires, but again, it's been a real privilege to be here, and I'm looking forward to bigger and better things in Beaumont in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Do you have anything, City Attorney? You got something? Yes. Okay.
It's tough to start mentioning names. We have 1,230 employees on the payroll today. Councilmember Mouton, thank you for your comments. Not saying any goodbyes to you or the mayor tonight. Congratulations to all of the newly elected officials that are here and up here as well, and for those that ran, people that are willing to sacrifice their time to try to make a difference. We need it. Councilmember Pate, the administration's worked with you for 14 years, and some of us for many years before that, you know, with all of your community service. You were always a team player as a council member. He was a quarterback in high school and college. He knows how a team should work and function, and a city council is only as successful as well as they work together. And the administration, I appreciate your service and your support very much.
Thank you. Okay, so I just have a couple of things. First, just to let everyone know, if you see something going on this Thursday, we are, the EOC is hosting a regional, Emergency Operations Center is hosting a regional exercise with our community partners, BISD, Illinois University, our first responders, etc. And it'll test our community partners and city responders for active shooters and mass casualties. So we do these exercises through the year, but this one is going to be out in the community. And so if you see something going on, don't be scared. It was probably the exercise. So, but you will know, they will tell you. So looking forward to that. And also, that is this Thursday. Also, last Thursday, I think it was Thursday, I did do my last State of the City address. And if you missed it and you would like to see it, it is on our website and it is on the Beaumont YouTube channel. You can't see all of it, but you can see the slides and you can hear me talking about it. And I think it went very well received. And like I said, if you missed it, you can see it. I think it might even be on our Facebook page, but I know for sure it's on our website and on our YouTube channel. W.L. and Robin, you could be back, but I still want to say, just in case, because we certainly don't want to take away from next week, I'm not leaving you today, so I'm not going to say any goodbyes because I got about 7 weeks left, maybe almost 8, a couple of months. But I just want to thank y'all for your service, you in Ward 4 and you in at large. And W.L., I did run one-year term. So seven campaigns at large and 7 campaigns as mayor. So that is why I have an odd number of years. Someone asked me that today, and it was just like what we had this past election, where we had several different propositions on the ballot that were charter changes, and that charter change was that used to, when I first started in the council in '94, the award members ran in odd years and the at-large and the mayor ran in even years, so we had actually an election every single year. Costly, plus with the amount of people that came out and voted, it probably wasn't the best thing. And the citizens, as we suggested, did vote to change that, and so there were 3 of us. That was Evelyn Lord was the mayor then, and I was at large, and then Andrew Kokonos. We had a 1-year term, so that's the reason for that. But I just want to thank you for your service and for everything that y'all done, and it's not always easy, as you said, but we appreciate it, and I think the citizens should too. And it's sometimes thankless, and I recognize that. So we appreciate you very much, and I do for sure. Enjoyed working with both of y'all. And I believe that this weekend is Mother's Day, so those mothers out there, have a good one. Have a happy Mother's Day. And I know a lot of people who have grandkids expected this week, so they'll get grandkids for Mother's Day, I hope. I've got like 3 friends that have grandkids come in the next 3 days, so I'll do a little shout out to those babies and those new mothers. So that concludes our meeting today, our night meeting. We did decide as the council, just for your information, the 2nd month of each quarter. I'm assuming the council would continue this if they decide to do so. But the 2nd month of each quarter on the 1st Tuesday is a 6 o'clock meeting. Moving forward is what this council decided to do, and if the next council decides to do the same, I would suggest it. So thank y'all so much for coming. We appreciate it, and we are adjourned.